Welcome, everybody, to the F4 Hunger Awareness Show.
It's my goal to feed 1 billion people before I die.
We want to bring awareness around the issue of hunger and food insecurity.
7 to 8 million people served so far, with the sole goal of eradicating world hunger by connecting sources of food to recipients in need. Fiorenza's Food for Friends.
Hi, Derek Fiorenza here for the F4 Hunger Awareness Show, and very excited today. We're going to be continuing our Chartwell Cares series of podcasts. I'm with Barrett Albritton. Did I say that right, Barrett?
You got it.
Okay, good. I'm not always great at pronouncing the name, so I'm glad that went so far so good. We're very excited because this partnership with Chartwell has proved to be very successful. We've been able to help a lot of important organizations, not just in one community, but in all of the communities that Chartwell practices law in. And that is the really cool thing is since Chartwell has a national presence, this food drive has really enabled us to link up with those locations around the country, food banks and food cupboards that really need support, not just for the holidays, but all year round. So we're hoping that this initiative will also spur an interest with the attorneys at Chartwell and the staff at Chartwell to help volunteer, whether it's sorting food from a food drive or volunteering to, pick some fruits and vegetables in the summer or transport some food. But our hope and our goal and intention is that this would extend beyond just the food drive we're doing here for the holidays and work on building a partnership within the community. So basically serving where you're practicing. That's the goal of the initiative. So all that to say, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Derek, thanks for having me, man. Glad to be on.
So I want to kind of get started. We'll go in reverse. I want to learn about your journey to becoming an attorney. I always find it fascinating growing up. I always thought law and the pursuit of ethics and justice. It was always very appealing. I almost went down the path of becoming an attorney. I became a financial planner with my dad's company, and I started a charity. But what led you to pursue a career in law? Why did you want to become an attorney?
Ultimately, I had a teacher, my probably freshman year in high school, who invited me to attend uh, a hearing in front of the Supreme Court. Back then, and I think now, they still have what is called the Scales Project. And the Supreme Court justices were hearing appeals in uh, cities where they don't normally hold court. They allowed the schools to bring students who had an interest or potentially had an interest in going to law school. And so I had a teacher invite me, went and watched an argument that I just found fascinating. The lawyer who argued for the state, it was a conspiracy to commit first-degree murder case. The lawyer who argued on behalf of the state was a very young man. I can't remember how old he was, but once the hearing was over, we were allowed to question the justices about some of the questions they asked, about some of the things they focused on during the appellate arguments, and really just kind of, it struck a nerve. And I'm coming out of high school. I was kind of between medical school and law school, and ultimately, I don't think I was smart enough to go to medical school. So law became my.
So which Supreme Court was that? The state or was it the federal?
That was a state,
Okay.
state of Tennessee. So it was a veterinarian who had gotten involved in a kind of a love triangle and paid to have his uh, paramour's husband killed, and ultimately tried to plead insanity and some other things. And it's been a long time since I even thought about that case, but ultimately that's kind of what led me down that path.
Really cool. I'm pulling up your LinkedIn profile for those that are going to be watching our video. They can kind of see. So
Awesome.
it looks like you went to Mercer University.
I did. I went to Mercer University down in Macon, Georgia. Graduated from Mercer in 2003. And at the time was deciding whether I wanted to live in Georgia, being Atlanta or potentially Birmingham, Alabama, or come back to Chattanooga. Ultimately got job offers in those three cities and chose Chattanooga. It's home. It's where I grew up, and my wife's family is also from here. So we kind of ended up back in Chattanooga in 2003. Went to work for an old defense firm, Leiter Williams, Dooley and Napolitan. Left there for another opportunity in 2011. Worked as a partner for Spears Moore, Redmond and Williams, another great firm here in town, and then met some of the guys at Chartwell at the National Restaurant and Retail Defense Association, and we started chatting about opening a Tennessee office. And so I opened the Chartwell office for them in Tennessee back in 2021 during the pandemic, which was kind of a crazy time to be changing jobs.
Absolutely. And I have your website bio up right now, and it looks like these are your practice areas. So general
Yeah,
liability. Okay. So what
yeah.
do you spend most of your time? I mean, I see all these areas listed here. What do you spend most of your time doing? What area of law?
Probably if I had to say, percentage wise, probably general liability, Derek, and that can, that can include anything from, as I mentioned, the National Retail and Restaurant Association, defending hotels, restaurants, um, hospitality chains in premises liability, negligent security, um, landlord tenant disputes. So I just almost went to trial in Birmingham over a huge landlord tenant dispute recently. So I would say the general liability and commercial litigation sector, that's probably where I spend most of my time. But I also handle a lot of construction litigation. I've got some workers' comp defense work. During my career, my firms have never pigeonholed me, and I've never really pigeonholed myself. And my philosophy has always been, if I can take the case and do a good job for my client at a fair price, then I've always just said yes. And so that has allowed me to handle a lot of different types of cases over the 22 plus years that I've been doing this.
That's awesome. And people can contact you. We'll definitely share your information in the bio if they're in the Tennessee area and they have needs in these specific areas that you practice, these practice areas. So I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, and I want to dig into preparation. So, a typical experience, a typical engagement, how much prep work does it take to, and then like, what is that process? You meet once, you have an engagement letter, and then from there, you start preparing for whatever your defense is. And what does that look like? Do things settle? Do you go to court?
Um, yes to all of those things. Cases come in a variety of ways. Sometimes they're private pay clients that have been referred to you by people you may have worked for or handled cases for in the past. A lot of our work at Chartwell comes through insurance companies and third-party administrators. So over the years, and especially in our type of work, we spend a lot of time marketing to and visiting with insurance companies and third-party administrators, because ultimately a company, I'm just going to throw one out. Holiday Inn, for instance, may get sued. Holiday Inn's going to turn around and turn that over to their insurance company. The insurance company uses firm like ours as panel counsel, and so that a lot of our work comes that way. When that happens, typically it's because a lawsuit has been filed, the company's been served with process, and we start the investigation on our side in order to file a responsive pleading, whether that's an answer to the complaint that's been filed, a motion to dismiss, a motion for summary judgment, whatever the case may be. Sometimes those dispositive motions come after a lot more legwork and discovery. But on the private pay side, yes. I mean, typically it's going to be uh, we get a phone call. I sit down with the client, or we sit down with the client, discuss what's going on. Either they've been sued or they're expecting potentially to be sued. And from there, we draft fee agreements. We work with our in-house counsel here at Chartwell to draft fee agreements so that I tell everybody, look, that's as important for you as it is for me, because it spells out my obligations as your attorney, but also your obligations to me as my client, and make sure that we're all on the same footing moving forward.
So then you get through the agreement. You come to you come to an agreement on the
Yeah.
terms.
Yep.
You've laid out the terms, the expectations of, the services you'll be providing. And I know it probably is dependent upon whatever the claim is or the lawsuit, but what does the preparation process look like for you? Is it just locking yourself in a room and doing nothing else for like a day or 2 days, or what is that process like?
Sure, sure. Well, all cases are different and very fact specific, and so on a typical case, let's say we get a case like the one I was just mentioning. A hotel has someone slip and fall on their premises. They contact a firm like ours. Most times, that's going to be after a lawsuit's already been filed. So, in the state of Tennessee, a lawsuit gets filed, and the defendant gets served with process. They have 30 days to draft an answer. When we Typically, when we file our answers, we also serve what are called written discovery requests, interrogatories, and requests for production to the other side. Practicing law is a lot different than what you see on television. Uh, we typically get to know everything the other side knows, and they get to know everything we know, and we see where the case shakes out. So you file your answer, you serve your discovery, you go through what's called the discovery process, which is they've got to answer those questions and our request for production of documents within a certain time frame. And then a lot of times cases will slow down at that point because you go into kind of a record gathering mode and fact finding mode, interviewing witnesses, all of those things. And then typically we'll set up a deposition. Depositions, sometimes depending on the cases, usually get set within, 4 to 8 months after a complaint is filed.
Wow.
Just depends on your deadlines and how long it takes to get records and find people and all of those things. And then you sit down and you take a deposition. They may take our corporate representative's deposition, but most times we're going to be taking the deposition of the person suing our client and or any witnesses he or she may have. That process can take anywhere from, as I said, 4 to 8 months, depending. Federal court's a little bit different because federal court, every case gets a scheduling order.
Okay.
And so you kind of governed by that scheduling order. State courts are becoming a little bit more efficient, and you're seeing a lot of state court judges now require scheduling orders pretty early on. State court's not quite as strict on following those scheduling deadlines as federal court can be. And a lot of times those deadlines will get moved by agreement of the parties upon motion to the court, and just depending on everybody's caseload. I mean, at any given time, I've got, I don't know, I'd hate to tell you the wrong thing, but over 100 cases ongoing at any given point in time. So
Gosh.
a lot of times those deadlines get set without a whole lot of input from us, and you ultimately end up having to file motions or agreed orders to move deadlines to the extent the court will allow you to do so.
You
But yeah,
personally have 100, or your office in Chattanooga?
oh no, I personally have probably, the last time I checked, I want to say it's around between 125 to 150 cases at any given point in time. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It just depends on what's going on.
How do you keep track of that?
It's you pray a lot, Derek, and hope for the best. No, we have a good system here. When
Okay.
cases come in the door, each case is going to have a partner, an associate, and a paralegal assigned to it.
Got it.
That provides 3 layers of uh, everybody looking over everybody else's shoulder to make sure that we're not dropping the ball on deadlines.
Checks and
We also
balances.
that's a perfect way to say it, checks and balances. But every case gets those 3 sets of eyes, and our legal assistants do a great job of calendaring those cases. We were served on this date. Our answer is going to be due 30 days from now. We set reminders and ticklers along the way to make sure that, and that's not to say that stuff doesn't sometimes fall through the cracks, but we do our dead level best to make sure that we're touching our files at least every 30 to 45 days so that we know what's going on. Our clients know what's going on. We're able to provide status updates to the clients, and it kind of holds us all accountable.
How valuable is the work of the legal assistants?
Oh my God. For me, invaluable. My wife jokes all the time. She said, I think the worst thing that ever happened to you was getting a secretary and a paralegal at work. She said, you became really good at delegating, and to the point that, and she made that joke one day because we were working outside, and I said, sweetheart, will you go get so and so? And she said, when I got back, I was leaning against my shovel, just waiting for her. And she goes, why didn't you just go get it? I was like, I don't know. To be honest, it's just, I delegated. And, but no, to your question, man, they're invaluable. We have two fantastic paralegals in this office with 7 lawyers, and they actually carry a very heavy load and do a good job. Both of them are kind of hybrid legal assistants slash paralegals, and could not function without them.
Like it's almost if you're thinking of a team, it's kind of like the glue, and they might not be the ones getting in the end zone scoring the touchdown, but they're making the key blocks to get you freed up to get in the end zone.
1,000%, man. They diary deadlines. They provide reminders. They keep our files organized. They help schedule things when we're working on something and just can't pick up the phone and make 10 phone calls to set up 10 different meetings. They're invaluable at doing those types of things as well. And you're right, they are very much the glue.
Awesome. So you've gotten to this spot. You're a young guy. You're successful. You've been at 3 firms. You're a partner here at Chartwell. You helped open up an office. What's next for you? Like, what's the next mountain to climb besides taking on 150 cases at a time? What's the next mountain for you?
I think with everybody, man, it's just continued client development. I've tried to, as kind of the office manager here, managing partner in the Chattanooga office. I do a lot of coaching as well. It just, we have 2 young lawyers. One just passed the bar in October. We have another one, Madeline Wood. Madeline passed the bar 2 years ago. And so, we spend a lot of time working with them on. The good news is both of them are incredibly ambitious and hardworking young folks. And you can't teach those 2 things. We can kind of help them with their legal writing, research, things like that. And so I spend a lot of time doing that. Always could get better at it. I've been doing this long enough that I realize my communication skills sometimes are lacking. I may have part of a conversation in my head, and then go in their office and expect them to get it. And so I've tried to get better at that. But just from just a whole holistic approach would be continued client development. Everybody wants to have that 1 or 2 massive clients that continues to feed the office. I want to continue to grow this office. We've got, like I said, 7 fantastic lawyers here in this office. Bo Hickson is our elder statesman. Bo's been practicing law for a little over 40 years now. I'm closely gaining on Bo. I'm going on 23 years. And then Chris Collins, we've got Chris I think he's a 15, 16-year lawyer. And then Rhett Hickson, who is Bo's son, he's a 13, 14-year guy. And then we have a young lady by the name of Trisha Hamilton, who just joined us. Trisha's a 17-year lawyer who, for the last 5 years, had been practicing remotely for a firm out of Miami, Florida. Wow. And she just joined us 2 weeks ago. So excited to have her on board, and just want to continue to grow this office, continue with client development, and feeding as many folks here in the office as we can.
So let's talk a little bit about culture, because we're talking about your office. You want to grow your office. And
Sure.
something that I've learned, and I feel like I'm becoming part of the Chartwell family
Yeah.
through a philanthropic initiative, but as an outsider, at least initially looking in, there's this notion of Chartwell Cares. And when I dug deeper, talking with Michelle and Amanda and Tom, I was like, what is Chartwell Cares? And it's like a whole philosophy, and it seems like it just permeates through the different offices. And somehow I feel like each of the attorneys that I've had a chance to talk with so far, they've communicated, their take on Chartwell Cares. I'd love to hear, from you, Barrett. What does Chartwell Cares mean to you?
Sure. Well, Derek, my parents were both incredibly generous with their time and their efforts. Whether it was coaching, helping someone in need. I learned from watching both of them the importance of helping when you can help. And it was refreshing to join a firm like Chartwell and to see that they honestly put their money where their mouth is. A lot of people talk about pro bono programs and different types of initiatives, but Chartwell, not only do we have this Chartwell Cares kind of mantra, they match our fundraising efforts for our own personal causes up to a certain dollar amount. And they encourage us all to be involved in the community. And I think it's really, as I said, refreshing to see a law firm get behind these types of initiatives, like the food drive that we have going on throughout our 36 offices right now. Chattanooga just wrapped up their food drive last week and turned everything in to the Chattanooga Area Food Bank, which serves a 20 county area in our neck of the woods, for lack of a better term. And through that 20 county service area, feed households, children, and elderly people who are in need of assistance. So it's rewarding. I helped start a charity myself with a young lady who was 20 years old at the time, called Hope. Oh my God, I just left me, but it's a camp for needy children, an overnight camp for children with special needs, and we have 2 to 3 volunteers per camper, so that we make sure their medical and health needs are being taken care of. At the same time, they're allowed to have fun and spend the night at an overnight camp, which is very rare for a lot of kids with the types of disabilities that some of these children have.
What's that
And
camp
then,
you said you were forgetting what the name was?
yes, oh my goodness, give me
Isn't
2
it
seconds.
Chattanooga area?
It is. It is.
Okay.
It was started here by a young lady. She was a nanny to a young girl, and the young girl passed away very unexpectedly from
Oh,
her disability. And at 20 years old, Abby Sutherland really wanted to do something in her memory. One second.
yeah.
Hope's
It's
Haven. That's it. Excuse me.
Hope's Haven.
Hope's Haven.
I'll pull
Hope's
it up.
Haven.
So they're still
Yeah.
functioning and still helping people.
Oh, absolutely. I think we just put on our third website, or excuse me, our third summer camp this year. We just hired a new young man to kind of take over as the executive director there. And, it's for the kids, but it also allows mom and dad to have a little bit of a respite and relax, knowing that their kids are in good hands and having fun at summer camp. So it's a really, really neat organization.
When
And
did
then
you create this with Abby? When was this created?
I think it was 4 years ago. And
Okay.
Abby, let's see here. Let's see about us. Um, It doesn't really tell how long it's been going on,
At least a
but
couple of years it's been around.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And Abby and I were kind of. I knew Abby since she was born. Her mother and my wife actually went to school together, and so when Abby started this process, she reached out to me and several other folks about being on the board, and it's just been a real honor to work with her on the board and at the camps and all of those fun things.
I love it. It says, in a world full of camp, we are a place where you can. So what community they're serving children in that are underprivileged, or what's the
No, most of these children are children with special needs,
special needs?
either
Okay.
either physical or developmentally disabled. And this camp allows them to come and spend 4 or 5 days and swim and play games and have fun with counselors who volunteer their time, and it's just a really, really neat organization.
You're gonna make me tear up here. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, Abby, when she took care of the young lady Hope, she found out about a camp like this, and there's only one in the entire, really, the Southeast, or at least in Tennessee.
Wow.
And so when Abby had the opportunity at 20 years old, she became our executive director and really got this thing off the ground. We raised quite a bit of money to make sure that our camp was getting paid for and that we had enough to kind of sustain us for several years. We have ongoing fundraising efforts throughout the year. We do some fashion shows, we play golf, they do a little bit of everything.
That is so inspiring and so heartwarming. See, I love these stories, learning about good work being done. A lot of times you don't get a chance to hear it, and
Right.
that's what makes these, long form interviews so neat because you can really see like God's work being done, helping people.
No doubt about it, man. I try to preach that to the young lawyers here. I think we have an obligation to give back wherever and whenever we can.
Yep.
Big Brothers Big Sisters is also a holds a very special place in my heart. I got involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters probably, let's see, my first little brother's now 27, so 15, 16 years ago.
That's
Um, got involved with there and have been on their board for many, many years, and really love that organization and the mission behind that in helping kids reach their full potential.
You have a beautiful heart, Barrett.
Thanks, man. I just, like I
Well,
said, I think we have an obligation to give back, and I've been extremely blessed in my life, and just try to change a little bit at a time.
yeah, well, it shows, and you are embodying that Chartwell Cares ethos that, like I said, it's sprinkled throughout the organization. It feels like
Yeah.
every layer is just oozing with that level of compassion and concern for their community. So, was the organization that you brought the food to, was it the Chattanooga Food Bank?
Yes, sir. The Chattanooga Area Food Bank. So they
Okay,
are
I'm gonna pull them up
located.
right now.
Yeah, I just had them pulled up myself.
This
Let's
is them
see.
right here. 1 in 6 households in Southeast
Yep,
Tennessee
yep.
and
That is it.
Northwest Georgia may not know where the next meal is coming from. So
That is it.
when we talk about hunger, what's very common in this space, and our job really is to advocate and educate, is food insecurity. So 1 in 6 households did not know where the next meal is coming from. Another way of saying that is they're food insecure. And
Yep,
those individuals, they might actually have a job. They
yep.
might be working two jobs, but they don't have the means to provide for the family. And a lot of times in the winter, depending upon where you are in the country, a real decision has to be made. Do I spend money to heat my house or to feed my
Right.
family? We call it heat or eat.
Hmm.
So,
It's
yeah, go ahead.
devastating to even think about that, but
I
yeah.
know, I know. And then it looks like here there's almost 50,000 children in their 20 by the way, 20 counties as a
Hmm.
service area. I don't know the size of the counties in Tennessee, but that's a pretty wide. For example, the corollary, Phil Abundance is for the Northeast. So
Hmm.
we call it the Delaware Valley area. It's 9 counties, which I've always thought is a pretty big swath of territory. 20 is even, it's, depending upon how big those counties are, it's even more.
Sure. Well, Chattanooga in that Hamilton County is uh, in Chattanooga is the county seat for Hamilton County. Chattanooga is probably, I think, population wise is somewhere. If you include the entire greater Chattanooga area, you're probably talking around 500,000 people.
Wow.
So pretty large service area. And then the other counties are a little bit smaller than that.
Got it.
They're more probably more rural counties get pulled into that 20 county area.
And that's interesting. And it says here they provided almost 17 million meals last year.
Yep.
So when you see 17 million meals, it's typically 1.2 pounds equals one meal. So you would take 16.9 times that by 1.2. That means they provided over 20 million pounds of food last year, which is
Incredible.
a lot. Yeah, it's really incredible. And then what they wrote here, I think, is 100% true. They write the problem. And they say hunger isn't about food, it's about access. And a lot of times that's correct. It's we have a lot of excess food in our country. We do a lot of food recovery. We teach restaurants and food distributors and manufacturers about the ability to give food away. You can do it legally. The Good Samaritan Act supports that effort. But
Sure.
providing access points to people. And the other issue I see is getting people to be motivated to make a difference throughout the year, not just, October, November, December when it's, I won't say the word fun, but where you feel more, like for whatever the reason is, you feel a deeper draw to do it. And I
Sure.
would call it the Charles Dickens effect. But, I read that book every year. It's on my bookshelf, The Christmas Carol, and the
Hmm.
importance of giving back and carrying that spirit of love in your heart. But what does he say in the book? Carry it in your heart all year round.
That's
And
true, Derek. I mean, and you're right. I think it is. That's a perfect way to put it. Is Charles Dickens' effect. People are led to get involved and to give back at times like this. I think because, as adults, we some of us know the pains of being hungry.
Yep.
And I think we think about, the weather's cold, the kids are in and out of school. And for whatever reason, you're right, that spirit is much more prevalent at this time of year. And it would be nice. And that's another thing, going back to Chartwell, is they encourage us to stay involved throughout the year and, to really, as you put it, carry that spirit, not only in our practices, but also in our private lives, just to be good people and to continue giving back. But you're right, for whatever reason, it does happen more around the holidays than any other time of the year.
Yeah. Okay, so as we kind of come to an end with our time today, I have, I guess, two questions I'd like to ask. One would be for any individual young person today that's thinking about a career in law. What is
Sure.
something that you would share with them that you wish you knew? So that's the first question. So take that one away, then I'll end with the second one.
Okay. All right. Um, I think I tell young people to make sure you're going into it for the right reasons. Practicing law is, as my old partner used to say, there are easier ways to serve the Lord than practicing law.
Mhm.
And it is a grind. And if I had it to do over again, the only thing I probably would have changed is I would have focused more on business, and knowing more about business in general before I went to law school, instead of taking uh, political science and English is never a bad thing, but I minored in English and psychology, but I took political science, and I wish I had probably gone the general business route instead of going the political science route. And as I've stated, make sure you're going into it for the right reasons. Yes, you can make money. Yes, you can be very successful, but ultimately, if you don't like what you're doing, those things aren't going to matter.
Really good advice. I use a term that I picked up from someone called heart posture. And I think it's really important to analyze your heart posture. Another way of saying it is your intentions behind your actions
Yep.
and making sure they
Agreed.
align with your values.
Yep. Agreed.
So the last question I have, and this one is a fun one. So take it any way you want. Um, you get to the end of your life and you're reflecting on the life you lived.
Hmm.
What is the one takeaway that you hope you accomplished? Another way of saying it is, what's the legacy you want to leave for your children, for the future, for others? What is it?
I think it's going to sound cliche, but I truly mean it. I feel like, as I've said a couple of times, I feel like we have an obligation to give back and to help people. And I hope that at the end of my time, people uh, saw my heart
Hmm.
and that I actually, was able to make a difference, either, in a life or in general, in multiple lives. That, as I said, that sounds a bit cliche, but I think we have an obligation to leave the world a better place than we found it.
So well said. And I'm just going to build on that. Do you think living this way, so this is like a bonus question, but do you think living this way has led to a greater level of peace and fulfillment in your life personally?
Yeah, I do. When I got involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters 15, 16 years ago, I did it on a whim. My wife and I she had had a couple of miscarriages, and we don't have kids. We decided at that point in our lives, maybe God had different plans for us. And ultimately, I've got, two nieces and two nephews that we've been able to help with cars and some other things. And, I also went and plugged in at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I got into coaching. Um, I was a Young Life career leader for 4 years. And I think that living that way certainly has added, and also working on my relationship with God, has led to a sense of contentment
Hmm.
and comfort that I might not have had as an early man, or as a younger man, excuse me.
Yep.
And I think that, finding a purpose in life definitely gives you a sense of contentment and fulfillment that you might not otherwise have.
I love it. That's so well said. I feel like this entire conversation has been uplifting, and there's so many good nuggets of information that you shared from starting out as an attorney, and if you pursue that, doing it for the right reasons, making sure you understand those reasons, um, and then at the end here, making sure you lock in on purpose. You don't want to waste time because you don't know how much time you have. And I'm a believer
Okay.
too, so I think I really connect with you on that level. But even if you don't have a belief, quote unquote, in God, the idea of giving back and serving to me is pretty universal. If someone's suffering, help them.
Yep. 1,000.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time today, Barrett. It's been really a privilege to have you on the F4 Hunger Awareness Show, and thank you for being part of this Chartwell Cares initiative. For those that are listening on YouTube or Spotify, please make sure you subscribe.
There.
And I hear you. For those that are listening on Spotify and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and join us. And we thank you so much for listening today. Have a great rest of your day.